Kubernetes for humans. Kubernetes for humans.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Kubernetes for Humans podcast. My name is Itiel Schwartz, and today with me in the show we have Kasper. Kasper, happy to meet.
Happy to be here. Thank you for the invite.
Sure. And let's start by you telling us a bit about yourself. Like, who are you? What do you do? And what's like your favorite Kubernetes project?
All right. So my name is Kasper. I'm currently in a developer advocate role at Dash0. I recently joined like a month ago. So before that I was at a company called Lunar, which is a Nordic challenger bank. Spent almost 8 years there building platforms on Kubernetes. Just going with the sort of the evolution of the CNCF and all the projects coming out, and then us adopting it right after almost. And basically building a bank on CNCF projects, which was very interesting. Also on the bleeding edge, sometimes it hurts a little bit. So that's sort of the really, really short introduction to what I do as in my day job. Besides all of this, I've been very much involved in the community. I'm a CNCF ambassador. I'm currently a co-chair for KubeCon. KubeCon London will be my last as co-chair. So looking
Why?
forward to. Well, you get free KubeCons as a co-chair, and I already did Paris and Salt Lake City, so this will be my last. It's also a lot of work, so it's okay, but it's really fun and rewarding to get all the insights into the community. And besides this, I'm also organizing local events, KCDs here in Denmark, and founded Cloud Native Nordics, a meetup alliance across the Nordics. And last thing I want to mention is that I'm trying to reach the Golden Kubernetes. I'm currently out 4 exams, so hopefully that will be done by KubeCon. But let's see.
Oh, a lot of things, like a lot to pick from. Maybe we'll go to like the bank. Like you said, both bank and bleeding edge, which usually are like it's not like the first thing when I think about a bank technology. So if you can, first of all, like what led you to work in the bank? Like I'll be honest, I don't really know almost anything about that. So if you can share, like why did you go there? Why did you choose to be that bleeding edge, and share a bit about the story and what happened there?
Yeah. So as mentioned, the company is called Lunar. They're still existing today. I joined the team back in 2016. More or less, I spent like 5 months as a consultant after my master thesis, which I also wrote about Kubernetes. And then basically they needed someone to rip apart their infrastructure. They were starting to do microservices, and they were sort of missing the infrastructure part a little bit. They were doing like manual orchestration through some Jenkins pipeline stuff with Terraform, Ansible, all kinds of stuff that was basically building an environment, and that caused a lot of issues between teams because now they were scaling and microservices were being added all the time.
What was the size of the company, and like what like experience did you brought, like when you joined? Like, so if you can.
Yeah, so when I joined, they were about 25 or something like that, and 3 or 4 development teams, as far as I remember. But they were at that scale already starting to see sort of the issues between the different teams because when you bake everything into one big go and you release everything at one, like in a single point of time, then you have a lot of dependencies between teams on, are you ready to, is this master branch, is that ready to go out? So there was a lot of coordination. And one of the goals of my employment was really to rip that apart and make sure that the teams were able to basically independently deploy their services into to some kind of platform. And that platform then ended up becoming Kubernetes. Yeah.
Okay, so you mentioned that you guys use quite a lot of like open source CNCF projects. Maybe a bit about like the philosophy of Lunar, or like like I'm talking with quite a lot of banks. Some very big banks are also like Commodore customers. And again, it's not like the bank thing to do to go bleeding edge, new technologies and so on. Like it's like that's not how things are working. So maybe
That's
share
true.
about like why and how did the management got like so like it can't be easy. So yeah, tell us a bit
Yeah.
both.
So yes. So we were at a challenger bank, or like a new bank, as it was also called at that time. So we were very much, so the initial philosophy was really that we shouldn't be a bank. We should leverage other banks in the different countries that we wanted to be present in, and then really scale to global scale, like the big visionary, take over the world more or less. But and that basically that required us to be able to scale quite rapidly. And Kubernetes was also like one of the reasons for or this was also one of the reasons for Kubernetes, as that would allow us to scale quite fast while taking over the world. So we were in the first couple of years, we wasn't a bank. We were just a fintech startup trying to do banking stuff. So everything was like from a technical perspective. And then in, I think it was 19, we got a banking license, and actually became a real certified bank and all that, which also changed the requirement quite a lot. That really put a lot of additional work on us in ensuring that the infrastructure was secure, compliant. We were following all the rules, also for how we were, delivering software into production for our developers. Required, 4I principles and all kinds of different compliance rules that needed to be implemented and in place. So we were already building on this platform from like the fintech time to then becoming a bank. And then we needed to figure out how to actually make Kubernetes work in a banking environment in 2019. And also at this time we were starting to ramp up very much in the Nordics. We changed sort of the philosophy of the company from being this global scale to actually focus on diving deep into the Nordic countries of Europe and Scandinavia, because the infrastructure is rather complex, and it's stitched together of all kinds of different vendors. So going deep was a better business case for Lunar, instead of trying to build a bank or build like an API layer or a nice user experience on top of something existing. So that's really what we tried to do there, and that worked out pretty well, to be honest. Kubernetes is a great platform for building these kinds of things, and the community also embraced this. And I also at this time there was also other banks, especially not as much in Denmark at least, but in the rest of Europe, and we saw companies like Monzo and other banks doing similar things. So we knew that this was really that this was the right way of doing this. It really gave us an edge compared to like the competitors we were going up against in the Nordic countries, which were built on like really old technology and really old compliance rules as well. We were also challenging what is actually necessary. How are we actually going to do this? We need to rethink how we do banking.
So like when I think about like a bank, JP Morgan, whatever, it's both the security, compliance, and stability. I don't know, like that. Like those will be like the first like three things that come to mind. Kubernetes, like 5 years ago, wasn't that good in each one of those pillars. Like it wasn't that secured. It wasn't that like I will say like robust or really like real production ready for banks. So like maybe if you can share some, like a bad story and a good story from your time there, like what didn't work out for you guys in Kubernetes, or you had to like reinvent, right? Like because it
Hmm.
was like very bleeding edge.
Well, of course, initially we spent a lot of time in trying to secure everything, building everything, and like so we were also cloud based, which was also completely new in the Nordics, at least, that we were actually building a bank in the cloud. So we did a lot of work together with some of the vendors, cloud vendors, the providers that we were using, to actually get some regulations changed. But in terms of Kubernetes, I think that we actually spent quite a lot of time in understanding like the security model, all the different ways of configuring, following the best practices of the CIS for Kubernetes and all of that. It took quite a lot of time, to be honest, to actually, first of all, to get the knowledge, and then secondly, actually implement that knowledge into the platform. I don't think I actually saw something where we wasn't able to use Kubernetes or had a case where it didn't really make sense. We were very much believing in Kubernetes as the foundation of
Mm.
everything that we were building on. Um, but it took quite a lot of effort to actually make sure that everything is compliant, and of course also having like external pen tests and all that done just to make sure that everything is following best practices.
Like, what did you do from like a stateful set like perspective, like databases and so on? Was it also on top of Kubernetes or like
That
AWS
was
or something else?
Yeah, that was actually one of the places where we didn't use Kubernetes. We were really well for some services like our monitoring solutions, we were using Kubernetes, but we really had a goal of keeping our production clusters as stateless as possible. So databases, we were on AWS, so we were using RDS for that, and really trying to push all the stateful stuff to whatever managed solution we could find, because we were also like a fairly small team. Let's say in 19, when we started to scale up, we were 3 people in the platform team. So we didn't really have like the full resources to go and manage databases and all that in a cluster ourselves. So buy stuff where it makes sense to buy stuff, and then bid on other stuff where you think that is what will give you an edge going forward.
Okay, no, that makes total sense. Um, so like you were there for quite a lot of time, right? Like in end of the
8
day.
years.
Yeah. What are even it's like the Kubernetes for Humans podcast. What other like CNCF projects were you guys heavily using, or you like specifically really liked? Because there are like
Yeah.
hundreds of projects, right?
Oh
Uh,
yes,
so,
yes.
so so maybe if you can share a bit on like what project you were like hardcore like adopter of.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah, so basically, yeah, Kubernetes was definitely the first one we took in. Secondly was Prometheus. Prometheus was really a great tool for monitoring in the early days, still is. But I right now, as I'm also wearing an Open Telemetry T-shirt, I really think that sort of the next wave of observability is like not looking at observability as these 3 different things, like having logs, having metrics, having traces in separate tools, but actually combining them to get valuable information, and be able to correlate between these different signals. I think that is at least right now it also makes sense in my current role at Dash0, an observability platform. But I really see some similarities between what we saw early days with Kubernetes. Kubernetes was really a platform for building platforms, right? I remember that quote from Brian Lars from San Diego KubeCon, that really resonated a lot with me, because that was what we were doing at Lunar at that time, building everything on Kubernetes and building a platform that was sort of tailored to Lunar's needs for running software and compliance and security. But we also, I think that Open Telemetry is like a project that is also for building platforms. Now we're just talking about like this is a metric collections platform, but there's so much to be gained from that correlation and that insight that now is possible for vendors to basically build new cool things on top of, for that hopefully in the end will be a big benefit to all developers and platform engineers and whoever else needs this information, right? That we get better insight into to what is basically going on in the systems that we are responsible for running every day. We saw similar issues with Lunar. We were using Prometheus. Prometheus was a great project. We got some great signals from that, right? But we just struggled with tracing. Tracing was hard for us.
yeah.
I think it was many have struggled when figuring out what was the actual value of tracing. Where do I need it? We did have like Jaeger running for a couple of years, but didn't really see developers actually like picking it up, using it for something. And then logs, we were very much focused on logs because that is really what developers is familiar with. It's they write like a log info, and they see that log line come out in the whatever log management tool you have, and we really doubled down on implementing a really good solution for logging for our developers at Lunar, because that we really wanted them to take on this responsibility of running these things in production, and providing them an interface that would allow them to do that very easily was very important to us. So we actually bought a product back then that focused a lot on that. Yeah, so I think that was just some of the projects. Open Telemetry is definitely one of the projects I would like to highlight right now, but also earlier projects that I've been very much active involved with, especially in my Lunar days, has been Linkerd as a service mesh. I love the simplicity, love the Linux philosophy. Flux, more or less the same thing, also the same philosophy. Yeah, so many great projects to choose from. And now I also think that a project like Percy's for dashboarding going forward is something that's going to be like a game changer. Instead of having like all these different vendors inventing their own like dashboarding formats, now we can actually standardize on what is a dashboard, what kind of panels exist. So I really see some value in that going forward as well. And basically building on these standards, and then have like vendors compete in like a new area instead of the old way of competing, right? So now we're building on these standards that allow us to do even more things, and make it easier for the consumers of these products to so now they only have to have Open Telemetry running. They need to understand what a Percy's dashboard look like. They can, commit that using GitHubs and Flux and Argo or whatever, and then get insight from whatever vendor solution they want in the end.
Okay, sounds very interesting. But share a bit about, you talked about the Dash0. You left and you became a DevRel. So like, what happened? Why did it happen? We also had Miracle here as a guest at the show, but if you can talk a bit about like what you guys do, and like why you particular like did this transformation, right?
Sure. Yeah. So as mentioned earlier, during my time at Lunar, I spent a lot of time in communities. I really enjoyed sharing experiences of what we were doing at Lunar. So I've been doing a lot of the different conference talks, meetups, and stuff like that. And that's always been one of the things that I knew that when I needed to find something new to do, I wanted to try this out full time, being like a DevRel kind of role. Um, so that was sort of the first thing. So then why Dash0? As mentioned, I really see these similarities between the platform of Kubernetes and then Open Telemetry as sort of the next wave of observability, and I really think that is going to be like a game changer for companies going forward, that they don't need to have all of these vendor like agents running in the clusters and all of that. That we can like sort of start from the beginning, have Open Telemetry there. We are all agreeing like this is the standard. We can get all the sprawl away with different naming of fields and stuff like that, the semantic conventions and all of that. So we are sort of like raising the bar to a new standard, and I think that Dash0 is on the right track in this space, because they are building like an Open Telemetry native platform that are utilizing all of these open source projects and open standards to build like the next generation of observability systems, right? Where we are actually able to deep dive and correlate the different signals that we get. And then again, I really saw this big change in the log management system that we took in back in the day, that having like a developer-focused, a developer-centric tool is something that really can bring some value. And I think that is really where Dash0 is also doubling down on, is really providing like the easy experience for developers. It's very much relates to like platform engineering, developer experience. All that we've been building these internal platforms has been about how do we make the life easier for developers? How do we provide like the right signals to them? So I really think they are on the right track in that space, and I really want to be part of that. So that's sort of the reason why I I transitioned into DevRel and in the observability space, but I really see some big potential in the space.
So like why DevRel? Like you could done like things that are a bit more like hands-on, right? So why doing like this transition as well? It's like a double
Well,
transition you did, right?
yeah. Well, I really enjoy learning, and one of the things that I saw in my in a role as DevRel is also playing around with different technology, learning all the different projects. Try to pick a project from the shelf, take it down, figure out how do I monitor that, how do I get the most value out of this product, and how can I or this project, and how can I make it available to developers and make it as easy for developers to consume. And also in this role is also very much about like getting feedback, getting insights, trying to help shape the product so that it fits whatever I hear from the community as well, right? So I think that's very, very interesting to me. Before being like a platform engineer, I also spent some time building iOS apps, so at some web apps as well. I kind of like that product, the user experience, that feel, and that understanding as well. It's something that I haven't been doing much, being deep dive into Linux and Kubernetes for the past 8 years, but it's always something that's been very interesting to me as well, and I sort of like get a lot of that as well. Yeah, and I just needed to try it out, and especially also given my role in the community. I think this is a very interesting place to be, and I want to be able to to get more involved with the different projects, especially in the observability space, and help them as much as possible get time on like the big stage if possible. I'll be talking and giving a keynote at KubeCon as well around Open Telemetry, observability, where we're going, some of the bridging between platform engineering and observability. I think the project is now providing like the Kubernetes operator for Open Telemetry, where you can get auto instrumentation and stuff like that. Is very much again back to this, making it easy for developers as possible, so they don't have to understand what is underneath this thing. Yeah, so I'm not sure if that answered the question, but
It did. And like you're so like rooted inside the community, then I must ask you, like, where are we going, right? As a community inside the CNCF, like share a bit both prediction, maybe our like technologies, but also from like a cultural standpoint. Like the CNCF is like booming, right? Like in the last 5 years, I don't know, like it tripled. I don't have the numbers, but I feel it's like exponentially growing. So if you can share a bit about the community aspects of the CNCF, but also the technologies, like where are we going as a like industry?
yeah, I really love this community. It's growing, and I think we are breaking records all the time for KubeCon attendance as well. And I think we still see like a lot of newcomers join like conferences like KubeCon, and I think it's actually above 50% all the time so far, at least, of new attendees or first time attendees at a KubeCon, which is telling us at least that there's still a lot of people that are joining this like rocket ship, whatever we call it. Um, so I'm only seeing this community grow much bigger. People are still trying to figure out how to get on this rocket ship, and I think for many of the projects and for us as a community, there's still work to do in lowering that bar and make it as easy as possible to get on the rocket ship. I think that's definitely one of the things that we will see going forward. I've a project like Backstage. I see some value in many of the projects, making it easy for. So if you as a newcomer to the space, you want the UI, you want everything up and running, but providing like plugins for all projects would sort of lower that bar for many people to start utilizing some of the projects. So I think there's some really interesting perspectives in figuring out how we as a community also lower the bar, make it as easy as possible, like more or less a one-click experience in some cases to get new people onboarded. And I guess we can't talk about the future without talking about AI as well. AI has been like a big topic, on at least on the last 3 or 4 KubeCons.
Yeah.
we're definitely gonna see more in that space. I think we will be seeing AI being used in many of the different projects to some extent. We will see it like getting embedded into all kinds of things. But we also see, again, the community is also figuring out how we're actually building like these platforms that would that allows developers to utilize these features as a company. That was actually one of the things I discussed in my keynote in Salt Lake City for KubeCon, was how do we actually bridge the gap between AI and platform engineering and make it as easy for developers to consume AI as possible, but still in like a secure and regulated way, a compliant way. But there's so many topics. I think observability is gonna have its next wave
Yeah,
now.
you have to say,
AI,
you have to say observability.
AI, but also just tailoring Kubernetes to these new kind of workloads has also been like a big topic. Developer experience. We just added the app development track to KubeCon this time. I think we're hopefully gonna see some more projects that will focus on the easiness of use for developers as well, providing the right insights at the right time. Like integration into IDEs could also be from an observability perspective as well, getting signals directly into where the source code was written and where the issue might be. There's all kinds of interesting perspectives and things that will happen in sort of the next, let's say, 10 years. Now we are celebrating 10 years of, last year we celebrated 10 years of Kubernetes, and now we're celebrating 10 years of CNCF, right? And this year, so there's going to be a lot of exciting things happening within the next 10 years as well.
Okay, super cool. Any last remarks or like things that you want to say to our audience?
No, I really, if you are not part of the community yet, I advise you to strongly join, go to KubeCon, talk to people. People are super friendly. Just, be there, be part of it. Try and make some new friends. It's an awesome community, and there's a lot of opportunities in the space still.
Okay, thank you very much, Kasper. Pleasure having you, and see you at KubeCon London, where it will be like your last KubeCon as a co-chair.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
Bye bye.
Kubernetes for humans.